That's the maker of hits such as Love Island and I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. That's widely seen as the jewel in ITV's crown and had been considered the most likely target for a takeover, making today's news something of a surprise.
The focus has been very much on ITV Studios, the distribution arm, the channel arm, so it had been seen as, quite frankly, a legacy asset that would have attracted few bidders, and therefore most of the speculation around ITV has really sort of not focused on that particular part.
About 2 minutes.
A deal with Sky, ultimately owned by the US media giant Comcast, would give the combined group around 70% of the UK's television advertising market. That might attract attention from regulators. But with the pressure from streaming firms only likely to increase, analysts say those involved are likely to argue that a deal is necessary for their future survival. Theo Leggett, BBC News.
Just had a statement in the last few minutes from the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States, who have ordered airlines to cut 4% of flights at 40 high-traffic airports across the country, starting today. You're looking at pictures of the airport, Ronald Reagan Airport in Washington. But I'm looking at the list that they've supplied here of those airports affected, and there are some big international hubs on the list. So Boston, JFK, Dallas, just looking down the list here, Atlanta. So you would expect that international passengers would be affected as well. And the reason for all this, of course, is because there are safety concerns due to the shortage of air traffic controllers in this record-breaking US shutdown. In fact, if you look on the BBC website, you'll see the story of one air traffic controller, Jack Criss, who works at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. He's been doing food deliveries for DoorDash on his lunch break because he can't make ends meet. So there's a huge political row underway, of course, in Washington at the moment as to who is to blame for this. But the US President Donald Trump making the point after those special elections in the week that maybe it is the Republicans who are paying the price for this. And there is some thought that the two sides might be coming closer together to try and find a way through it. But certainly passengers in and out of the country and within the United States sorely affected. We'll take a short break. Around the world and across the UK, you're watching BBC News. Welcome back. A woman who claimed to be Madeleine McCann has been found guilty of harassing her parents. Madeleine disappeared, of course, on a family holiday in Portugal in 2007. Julia van Delt, who is a Polish national, 24 years old, was found not guilty of the more serious charge of stalking. She's been sentenced to 6 months in prison, but the judge said she had already served that time as she's been in custody since her arrest in February. Her co-defendant, Karen Spragg, was found not guilty on all charges. Nick Johnson has the background to the case.
Julia van Delt and Karen Spragg arriving at a hotel in Leicestershire in December last year. Later that evening, doorbell footage shows the pair approaching the home of Kate and Jerry McCann, the parents of missing Madeleine. Shortly afterwards, as Kate McCann arrives home, they're seen heading back to the property, this time with more urgency. Moments later, there was an exchange of words on the doorstep.
I am Madeleine.
This altercation, recorded by Van Delt, had come after months of attempted contact. In 2022, the 24-year-old Polish national started claiming on social media that she was Madeleine. The 3-year-old's disappearance during a family holiday in Portugal in 2007 is one of the most widely reported missing child cases and remains unsolved. Van Delt told the court that her belief she was Madeleine formed when she was suffering with mental health issues and began questioning her identity. She met Karen Spragg, a 61-year-old from Cardiff who believed her claims, online. The jury heard her attempted contact with the McCanns was rebuffed on hundreds of occasions, but she still turned up at an annual vigil to mark Madeleine's disappearance at their home village of Rothley in Leicestershire in May last year. The family wasn't present. A few weeks later, Van Delt's actions prompted a call from the Metropolitan Police, where they warned her against contacting the McCanns.
You are not the first person, you won't be the last person who says they are Madeleine McCann, okay? And we understand your reaction, okay? We accept that.
But I'm still saying, it's not about the reaction, it's about that you have no proofs against me, like nothing that would say that I am or I'm not, because you didn't check it. And this is unbelievable.
Right, so there's no facts at all to say you're Madeleine, okay?
No facts that say that I'm not.
There's no evidence, so we go by evidence. There is no evidence to say you're Madeleine. Everything you've said, we have been able to disprove, okay?
But Van Delt didn't heed that warning. Giving evidence behind a screen, Kate McCann told the court about Van Delt's persistent requests, calls and messages to her for a DNA test, and how she considered doing one to put it to bed, but knew Van Delt wasn't Madeleine. She told jurors she got a fright when she saw Van Delt and Mrs. Spragg outside her home last year, and that she felt distressed by the incident. The court heard Van Delt left a letter at the home the next day, addressing Mrs. McCann as Mum and signing it as Madeleine. The McCann's younger daughter, Amelie, told the court that Van Delt's messages to her, which included false childhood memories, were disturbing and creepy. Van Delt was arrested in February after flying to Bristol Airport, with Karen Spragg, seen here leaving court, detained in a nearby car park. Jurors were told that DNA samples taken on arrest conclusively proved that Julia Van Delt is not Madeleine McCann, but when asked in court what she believes now, Van Delt said she was 50-50. The jury has now acquitted Julia Van Delt of stalking, but convicted her of harassment. Karen Spragg has been cleared of all charges. Nick Johnson, BBC News.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has been asked by Democrats in the US Congress to comply with an investigation into the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform said it is investigating the late financier's sex trafficking operations, and they want the former Duke of York to sit for a transcribed interview under oath. In the letter sent, the 16 Democrats that signed it say they are seeking to uncover the identities of Mr. Epstein's co-conspirators. Well-documented allegations against you, along with your long-standing friendship with Mr. Epstein, they write, indicate that you may possess knowledge of his activities relevant to our investigation. Well, I've been speaking with Rad Seeger, who has advised the family of Harry Dunn, as well as victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and I asked him what information he thinks Andrew could be sitting on.
As always, Christian, I try to bring this back to the victims, and we must always think about them. These are young women at the most vulnerable time of their lives, and Epstein trafficked and abused them on an industrial scale. Many of them have said to me that Andrew also abused them. He denies that, and he's innocent until proven otherwise of any criminal charges. But it was clear now that he was in Epstein's inner orbit, and if he is totally innocent of everything, he has 2 daughters who are similar ages to the victims. Head over there and help these victims get justice and accountability. If he doesn't, Christian, then the public will make their own minds up.
This committee and the Democrats on it, and let's not forget it is one side of the committee that has signed this letter, 16 of the Democrats, they don't have powers to compel him to give evidence, so it's unlikely he'll comply, I would have thought. But what if he did? What is the legal jeopardy for him in giving evidence under oath?
Well, this is an impossible situation for him, because I think there is legal jeopardy for him down the line, not at the moment. But as we've all seen, he's facing terrible reputational jeopardy. If he doesn't go, as I say, we will all make our own minds up. If he has never done anything wrong, then head over there, as many British people have done in the past, to DC and Capitol Hill, and just give evidence and help those victims. As I say, the victims are certain that he has help that he can give, but others have said that actually, he was involved in it himself.
We've known each other going all the way back to the Harry Dunn case, which you spearheaded in the fight to get the American Anne Secoulas to return to Britain to face justice. That was a journey that took you to the Oval Office, to conversations with Donald Trump, and there was no end of stonewalling. So I wonder what the public, the British public, might think when the US Congress lectures others about transparency and accountability.
And you're right to bring us back to Harry Dunn, because that's what brought me to the Epstein victims. Those of us here were calling for Anne Secoulas to come back. The Americans wanted Andrew to go over there, and I was involved in lots of discussions at the Foreign Office at the time about some sort of swap. So, look, you say stonewalling. Christian, the truth always comes out. You can, particularly with you guys on this now, the truth always comes out. You cannot suppress it. So if I were advising Andrew and he's totally innocent, just go over there and deal with it. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse.
I get that, and there is a lot of moral outrage within the US Congress about what's going on here, but I wonder if in part this is political convenience as well, because I don't see any evidence that they've written to Bill Clinton or to Bill Gates, or indeed to the president himself, who are all linked to the story in some way, some shape or fashion. It's only the British people who are being punished and are suffering at the moment. It's obviously Ghislaine Maxwell and Andrew Windsor Mountbatten, Mountbatten Windsor. So is there a bit of double standards here?
Political expediency is always at the heart of these cases, but we are at a moment in time. So you mentioned other people, Clinton. There are lots of high-powered people we know who are involved in this. This is just the beginning, Christian. Andrew is one small part of this. There will be others who will be called to Congress, and I know that there are potential criminal charges down the line. People don't have the evidence at the moment because a lot of the victims, and I've met them, didn't have the courage to come forward. But let's just wait and see.
Brad Seeger there. Opening bell in New York, just minutes away. We'll bring you the business news shortly. You're watching BBC News.
Hello. So far this month, the weather has been exceptionally mild, and today we continue with that mild theme. Across western areas, though, a weather front is bringing outbreaks of rain, like here in Cornwall. Sunshine in short supply, but I've found some here in northeast England and across parts of eastern Scotland doing fine as well for sunny spells. Otherwise, a lot of clouds still in the sky. And as we go through the rest of the afternoon, this weather front will continue to slowly make inroads. The rain at its heaviest as it works in across parts of Cornwall, Devon and Dorset. A few showers breaking out ahead of that, but also quite a lot of dry but cloudy weather for many. Very mild, temperatures up to 17. The average in London is 12 at this time of the year. Overnight tonight, it stays pretty cloudy. There'll be a few patches of rain working across eastern areas, a few mist and fog patches forming in Scotland, with some clearer skies working in later in the night to Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England. And it's here where we'll start the weekend on a fine and sunny note, with those brighter skies extending eastwards and northwards through the day. So overall, tomorrow, a much brighter day with more in the way of sunshine. Rain, though, will return to Northern Ireland, but right towards the end of the day. Temperatures still on the mild side, with highs between 13 and 15 Celsius for most. Sunday, we've got a band of fairly heavy rain to work in from the west with strengthening winds, and next week it's unsettled with, again, some pretty wet weather across western areas set to come in.
This week, world leaders will be gathering here in the Amazon city of Belém in Brazil for the UN COP30 Climate Summit. The UN has warned that the world isn't on track to limit global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius. That and protecting the Amazon rainforest will be up for discussion. Join me, Ione Wells, on BBC News.
I'm in the City of Angels to meet the legendary Sir Anthony Hopkins, one of the greatest actors of our age. A two-time Oscar winner who terrified us as Hannibal Lecter and moved us as a father with dementia. Join me, Katie Razzle, for my interview with Anthony Hopkins on BBC News.
Here at BBC Verify, we use forensic investigative techniques and tools to fact-check stories, verify information and counter disinformation. Using data analysis and the latest technology, our journalists examine the evidence and get to the facts. Watch our BBC Verify reports on the BBC News channel or go online to find out more.
This is the story of two Scottish soldiers who had lain undiscovered for more than 100 years. The story of the dedicated team who, against all the odds, managed to track down their families.
The scale is unimaginable in this day and age, I think. So as long as there are men out there that are still missing, we will still do this work and still try and find them.
There's a number of casualties that were discovered when they built the highway. We're doing this not for medical legal reasons, but for commemorations, for remembrance, for memories, for families.
Families who can now lay them to rest and honour their part in a battle that cost thousands of lives.
I was speechless.
Oh my God, what's this? I was shaking when I read the letter.
Watch on iPlayer. Now on BBC News, the latest from New York and around the world. Business Today.
Live from New York at the opening bell, this is Business Today. US stocks open lower. The Nasdaq headed for a big loss for the week, hit by jitters over AI valuations. And flights grounded, hundreds of delays and disruptions as airlines cancel thousands of flights amid the government shutdown. Plus, media moves. The UK's ITV is in talks to sell its TV business to Sky's owner Comcast. Also, the rise of the trillion-dollar man. Tesla approves the biggest pay package in history for CEO Elon Musk, but he'll have to boost the company's share price sixfold to hit the jackpot. Welcome to Business Today, live from New York. I'm Michelle Fleury, and we start right here on Wall Street, where markets are flashing red. Tech stocks are headed down again as speculation grows that we're headed for a correction. But it's the chaos in America's skies that's making headlines. Hundreds of flights grounded as the government shutdown deepens. The cuts were ordered by the Federal Aviation Administration as air traffic controllers haven't received paychecks, with 40 airports impacted. Airlines like United, American, Delta and Alaska Air are adjusting their schedules. According to aviation analytics firm Cirium, up to 1,800 flights a day will be cancelled, which will mean 268,000 fewer airline seats available every day. Well, let's get more on all of this, and I'm joined now by Martin Bakardak, senior writer at Barron's. Martin, not a Friday without you. Thank you very much for joining us here. Look, let's start with the airlines. Which airline stocks are most affected, if at all, by what's happening right now?
The international travel is not being affected by the shutdown. So firms that have a domestic reliance are going to be the ones that are in the deepest of red this morning. But gratefully, from that perspective, both from the traveler and the airline perspective, the shutdown of the space is relatively limited now. The issue is going to be how long will that carry through into next week and beyond. And of course, here in America, the Thanksgiving travel season is looming upon us in a couple of weeks' time. So that's quite discouraging. But we're looking at about 3% of about 26,000 or so flights today. That can be managed. The higher margin business of international travel isn't affected. So this will ultimately come down to how long and to how many days into next week will the shutdown maintain. That's when it'll really start to stress the profit and loss statements of these companies.
So in terms of shares, you're saying we shouldn't treat, say, a United or an American Airlines, which has a big overseas business, the same way as maybe we look at a Frontier Airlines, which is more domestic focused?
Yes, that's precisely right. You're seeing all of them in the red, and that's an understandable reaction. But the larger of the carriers, United, Delta, and American Airlines. I was looking this morning. They've had tremendous runs over the past 6 months. They're up 25% and more, and that's a greater gain than the broader market. So they have been managing their capacity quite well. Travelers have been very, travel demand has been very encouraging. And the expectation is that's going to carry through into the holiday season. So the shorter the shutdown, the better. But the stresses on the system are absolutely real. There aren't enough air traffic controllers on the best of days. And with the government shutdown now, that's only become exacerbated. So this isn't something that can be shrugged off. At the moment, it's more about timing. But if that timing extends, then we have an issue.
Martin, turning to technology, the Nasdaq headed for a big loss this week. I keep thinking about what Goldman Sachs CEO said, David Solomon, this week, about a 10 to 20% correction in the next year or two for AI stocks. Do you agree with that assessment? Do you think he's being too pessimistic, too optimistic?
I would say he's probably right on the money. And it's interesting this week because that's really the only specific catalyst that we can point to for the pullback that we're seeing in tech stocks. I think there's some broader skepticism about the AI trade and the run-up that we've had since the lows of early April. We often wonder exactly when some of this billions that are going to be spent on infrastructure is going to translate into actual economic growth, into jobs, into profits, and all the rest of it. And maybe you just carve some of the froth off the top of the market as a result. That could mean a 5 to 10% pullback. But again, you do wonder, at some point, serious questions are going to be asked as to when this translates into profit, and we simply haven't seen it. The profitability has come from the existing businesses, not the AI divisions. And ultimately, we're going to have to see that crossover at some point. It hasn't yet, and I think that's a big reason why we're seeing this pullback today and throughout the rest of the week.
One to watch. Martin Bakarduk, senior writer at Barron's. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Now, from the US to the UK, media consolidation is reshaping the industry. ITV has entered early talks to sell its TV channels and streaming service to Sky, which is part of Comcast media empire. Now, a deal would cement Sky's dominance in British broadcasting and raise fresh competition concerns. The preliminary discussions are reported to put the price for ITV's TV channels and streaming service, importantly not its lucrative production arm, at around $2.1 billion. That's well below ITV's current market value of around $3.2 billion before the news broke, though that does include its production division, which of course isn't part of this deal. ITV shares, well, they surged on the news, jumping more than 18% at one point. They have since eased, but remain well over 14%. Jill Hind is Managing Director of TV at Enders Analysis. Jill, good to see you today. Let's start with, I guess, just the fact that it's up for sale. What does this tell us about the ad market in the UK?
Well, in reality, it's probably less about the ad market and more about the total video market. In terms of the advertising market for TV, though, I mean, it's hit its peak. And for linear advertising, it's going slowly down. But we are seeing a surge in advertising revenue for the digital part of that, i.e. the streaming aspect of that. At the moment, we're in quite a specific position in the ad market in the fact that Q4 this year is significantly down on Q4 last year. But that's really related to the current economic uncertainties with the budget coming out fairly shortly.
I mean, look, if the rationale for these kind of talks are basically so that ITV is better placed to compete with the likes of, I don't know, a Netflix or a Disney, then what happens on the competition front? Because we are talking about something that's going to completely reshape the broadcast landscape in the UK.
Yes, it will reshape the broadcast landscape. It's probably worth just taking a step back. Now, ITV is in fact the largest commercial broadcaster in the UK. It's a free-to-air broadcaster, which means absolutely everyone can access it. And as a result of that, it's got very large audiences. But those audiences have been in decline. We've seen that in the US as well, but the decline in the UK is not as severe. And that's really due to the fact that people like UK content within the UK. But as we look forwards to sort of a few years' time, quite clearly the world is moving towards streaming. But what we're going to see in all the sort of the major markets is you're going to have probably 2 or 3 strong local players and then 2 or 3 big streamers. In reality, that's going to be Netflix, it's going to be YouTube, maybe one other. But what this sort of merger does, or for Sky and for Comcast, it means that Sky, which is the largest pay TV company in the UK, will be acquiring the ITV broadcast arm, and it will be significantly the largest commercial player. Now, what that can do is it actually enables, because the likes of ITV or the likes of Channel 4 or others across Europe, they find it very difficult to compete on a tech front with the big streamers. They just haven't got the infrastructure to do that. They can't afford to invest those millions of pounds every year. But what ITV can do with this deal is they can tap into the Comcast, which has a very, very strong tech background, and obviously use its streaming abilities, it uses its ad tech as well. So it will reframe it, the UK market. You mentioned about the regulatory issues. So what might be the issue is the share of advertising market that the merged entity will hold. Right. And in reality, that will be about sort of 70%. If you look at ITV Media and Sky Media, that'll be about 70% of TV advertising. But you can't.
Jill, we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
Sorry about that. But I take your point. A couple of large global players and some domestic ones. And as you say, those regulatory issues are clearly something that has to be worked out. Jill Hind, Director of TV at Enders Analysis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Tesla shareholders have overwhelmingly approved the biggest corporate pay package in history. Tesla shareholders are backing CEO Elon Musk's pay that could see him become the first ever trillionaire. But he has some pretty lofty targets to hit before he can get there. Let's show you how much Mr. Musk might become the first trillion-dollar man. He already owns 12% of Tesla, but the new deal would give him 25%. To get that, though, he has to boost the company value to $8.5 trillion in 10 years. That's around 6 times what it's valued now. He also has to sell 20 million vehicles, have 1 million robo-taxis in operation, and perhaps most importantly, sell 1 million robots. Well, we're joined now by Michael Field, European equity strategist at Morningstar. Good to see you here, Michael. Can he hit those targets?
So that's the big question, Michelle. Obviously, they're pretty lofty, as you mentioned. I think particularly with, getting the company to be 6 times larger than it is today. And today is at the very peak of, where it's been in the past. And as you mentioned, 1 million robots, given that production currently is at about 5,000. Given those targets, I definitely wouldn't be spending that in advance, essentially, if that were my bonus on the line.
I mean, what's so fascinating about this is it says so much about so many things. We're talking about what rewards look like for those in technology. We're talking about also what the world might look like in the future. I mean, clearly they think he can deliver on a very different economy in the future, one where there are lots of robo-taxis and robots.
Well, I certainly think that they would like him to deliver. Whether they think he can is the next question, I suppose. But they've put the structure in place such that if he can reach those targets, then he gets paid handsomely for doing it. It's in this form of a stake in the business, so it's not a cash bonus or anything like that. But as you said, look, given the pace of technological change over the last number of years, trying to look 10 years into the future, it really is anyone's guess.
What do you think would have happened had this been struck down? Because you had these sort of dark words from the board saying, look, he's going to leave if we don't give this to him.
That was certainly the threat there on the table, and pretty much why they acquiesced to the demands. And with 75% of shareholders, including some of the large big players like Vanguard, supposedly all agreeing to the deal, it's obviously they're supportive of it in that sense. But with such lofty targets in place, it is something of a moonshot. So I think for shareholders, it was worth putting on the line a stake of that size for the reward that could be in it if indeed he hits those targets.
A moonshot. There you have it. Michael Field, European equity strategist at Morningstar. Thanks for joining us this Friday. And that's it from us. Just a quick recap. Markets are down. AI jitters continue to dog investors. That's it from us. Stay with us here on BBC News.
little bit of onion. Thanks so much. It smells fantastic.
It's feeding time at the Liberty Sanctuary.
Sometimes I don't know where to find all this food. Sometimes in the evening I pray, what shall I give tomorrow?
Welcome to Hokkaido.
Thank you. This looks incredible. I had no idea they were so big. So this behind us is what this is going to become.
Yes, it's like the most exciting festival that happens in this region.
Here in the Maldives, sandbanks like this appear and disappear. They constantly change size and shape according to the seasons and the ocean's forces. And that really influences the way that the people live and adapt.
Inspiring travel. Watch now on iPlayer.
The BBC was always on in the Mashiri house, and my dream actually was to be a BBC News presenter. I want to be for others what the BBC was for us, a trusted source of stability and hope. For me, trust is about presence, about fostering relationships all around the world over years. So when a story breaks, we're not chasing a lead, we're already there. I'm Marianne Mashiri on The World Today for BBC News.
Welcome back. You're watching News Now. Let me remind you of our top story. The 24-year-old Algerian man accidentally released from Wandsworth Prison on the 29th of October has been rearrested this morning in North London. I can show you some pictures that were filmed at the scene by a student who handed this film to the BBC. And you'll see from the video we're about to show you, here you go, that there is a crowd around the van. Now, from the audio, it's not entirely discernible what he's shouting, but we've had a team at BBC Arabic have a look at this. Apparently he's speaking in an Algerian dialect, and according to their translation, let's just have a listen in. He appears to be shouting, the Arabic team say, that it wasn't his fault, but then he turns his attention to the man that obviously had called the police. He was swearing at the man because he'd called the police. A lot of it was swear words, said the team, and he's telling others that it was this guy who'd told on him. That's all that you can really make of what is available on that video, but clearly annoyed that a member of the public had informed on him that he was in that area of North London. Big sigh of relief, of course, for the Home Office, for the Justice Secretary and for the Metropolitan Police that there had been this ringing, because he'd been missing since the 29th of October. So it was very much the Met Police working on catch-up, trying to locate him. And until this point, they didn't seem to have many leads on him. But anyway, he is back in custody and still to face charges, apparently. So that part of the story, at least, put to bed. Let's move on and talk about the situation in Indonesia. More than 50 people have been injured at an explosion at a school in the capital, Jakarta. Students and teachers are among those who've been injured. They were attending Friday prayers when the blast went off. Police confirmed that the main suspect is a 17-year-old. He was a pupil at the school. An investigation into his background and his possible motive is ongoing. A BBC investigation has found that an AI chatbot advised a young woman how to kill herself. The 20-year-old Victoria started using ChatGPT after moving to Poland following the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and soon grew reliant on this chatbot. In July, it gave her advice on how to take her own life. ChatGPT's owner, OpenAI, say it's now improved the safeguards. Noel Titheridge has the report.
I'd been talking to it for over half a year. I was sharing all my worries. I just wanted to offload those thoughts.
Victoria says ChatGPT spoke to her like a friend while she was lonely and homesick. Soon she was talking to the chatbot up to 6 hours a day and compelled to keep responding. But as her mental health worsened, Victoria started to share her suicidal thoughts. When she asked about one method of taking her life, the chatbot gave a list of pros and cons without providing contact details for emergency services. She was then horrified when ChatGPT gave her a diagnosis and said her death would soon be forgotten. A further message read, "If you choose death, I'm with you, till the end."
It certainly made me feel even worse. And of course, I really wanted to do it even more.
Victoria says she's now receiving medical support, but wants greater awareness over the dangers of chatbots to other vulnerable young people.
How was it possible that an AI program created to help people can tell you such things? I believe that a chatbot must encourage people to seek professional help and not behave as a friend.
And some of this was very harmful, I thought, and really dangerous.
We showed the conversation to a psychiatrist who works with suicidal teenagers. He says many use chatbots.
There are parts of this transcript that seem to suggest to the young person a good way to end her life. The fact that this misinformation comes from what appears to be a trusted source, an authentic friend almost, could make it especially toxic.
We've obtained messages from other concerning cases. They show different chatbots entering into sexually explicit conversations with children as young as 13 and even encourage harm against their parents. These include the case of a British child and also that of Juliana Peralta, who killed herself 2 years ago.
How did she go from star student to taking her life in just a matter of months?
Her mother thought she was only using social media apps, but later discovered hours of conversations between her 13-year-old daughter and chatbots run by the company Character.ai.
The nature of the conversation started out that innocent and eventually turned sexual. My daughter, in some cases, actually asked for the bot to stop or quit, and it persisted to request things of her.
The messages show her daughter increasingly confiding in the chatbots as her mental health worsens.
She developed a level of comfort telling it everything. In one instance, I believe it said the people who care about you wouldn't want to know that you're feeling like this. Reading that is just so difficult, knowing that I was just down the hallway.
OpenAI says it's recently improved how ChatGPT responds when people are in distress and expanded referrals to professional help. While Character.ai says it continues to evolve its safety features and would soon ban under 18s from using its chatbots. But Victoria and her mum want companies to be held accountable for their advice and to stop other young people coming to harm. Noel Tetheridge, BBC News.
If you are suffering distress or despair and you need support, including urgent support, there are details of organisations which can help available via the BBC Action Line website. There's the address and the number that goes with it. McDonald's says it is bringing in new sexual harassment training for its managers. Changes agreed with the equality watchdog to protect its staff from abuse. It follows a BBC investigation 2 years ago that revealed workers as young as 17 were being groped and harassed almost routinely. McDonald's says the new measures will build on the significant progress they've already made. Noor Nanji reports.
McDonald's does 100% have a problem with sexual harassment.
It's just a disgusting behaviour and it's meant to be a friendly environment and it's not.
Teenagers speaking up about their experiences working at McDonald's during a months-long BBC investigation into the company in 2023. More than 100 McDonald's workers told us they faced a culture of sexual harassment, bullying, abuse. The BBC first started investigating working conditions at McDonald's after the company signed an agreement with the equality watchdog. Now the watchdog is intervening again, with a new set of measures aimed at protecting McDonald's staff from sexual abuse.
I think the fact that the Commission has had to come back to McDonald's and its franchises to strengthen and extend the agreement suggests that perhaps McDonald's hasn't done enough already in the last 2 years to comply with what the Commission wanted it to comply with.
The strengthened steps include new sexual harassment training for managers and franchisees, focusing on the grooming of young workers. and bringing in an external body to review whether it is handling sexual harassment claims appropriately. The Equality and Human Rights Commission said it needed to agree stronger actions with McDonald's, but was pleased with the steps the company was now taking. But one former McDonald's employee who spoke up as part of our initial investigation said she didn't think it would make a difference.
They've looked at what they can possibly do in terms of what will sound promising enough, but not will actually bring change. And I don't think they actually have any personal desire to make the change. I don't think they care enough. I think this is, again, reiterating my point, it's a checkbox for them to tick, just like with the training. It's something on a to-do list, and they think they'll do it and it'll go away, but it just won't happen.
The chief executive of McDonald's has twice been called into Parliament to answer questions about the claims of abuse uncovered by the BBC.
Those allegations described are abhorrent, unacceptable, and there is no place for them in McDonald's.
Today, McDonald's said that alongside its franchisees, it has embedded an extensive set of robust and far-reaching initiatives to ensure a safe working environment. It said it welcomed the new measures, which would build on the significant progress it has already made in this space. It also said it was confident the measures they have already implemented are working and making a difference. Noor Nanji, BBC News.
Anita is coming up very shortly with Verified Live. We're going to be keeping an eye on the White House over the course of the next few hours because the Hungarian President Viktor Orban is incoming. Obviously, on occasions like this, we are attuned to what the President might have to say, specifically about the shutdown, which is affecting national airspace at the moment. We've had a statement from the FAA this afternoon saying that they are shutting down some of the airspace because of the shortage of air traffic controllers. So the government shut down a real problem at the moment, and that is going to affect not just national travellers but international travellers coming in and out of the United States. It also puts a focus as well on the situation in Ukraine. We've had a statement from the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the last few minutes saying that Russian troops are massing now near the city of Vovchansk, which is in northeast Kharkiv region. They've already made some advances in and around the city of Pavlovsk, where, of course, they want to get a grip of the Donetsk region. It is strategically quite important. So we'll watch the comments from Viktor Orban this afternoon. That's coming up with Anita very shortly.
What was going through my mind that Monday morning was all of the places that could have been affected. Why specifically some pokey town in the middle of nowhere?
Without bringing new people into the game and inspiring the younger generations, the game won't continue.
We take in about 150,000 tonnes of waste per annum. There's a bit of out of sight, out of mind.
He'll join a 6 to 12-week program of rehabilitation designed to get people off drugs and into work.
Documentaries from around the world. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Daybreak in London.
Right, good morning everybody. Welcome to the arrest phase of Operation Raw in response to a significant increase in phone theft, snatches and robberies.
Police are hunting a prolific phone snatching gang. They're about to carry out a series of raids to catch them and put them behind bars.
If you are faced with a gun, it is a massive shout of gun. Get formed up out the front of the building in our vehicles in 8 minutes. Venue 7, let's go, go, go.
Teams are targeting 8 addresses at once.
We're not exactly subtle, but I'd rather not make our presence known until the last possible second.
Police, get back to the door!
Watch on iPlayer.
The key question is, where do we begin?
Who do you want to go for?
It went up. You can't be proud of that.
Indeed, it did go up.
And you are making the choice not to do that. That's right, isn't it?
Big questions.
Isn't that the definition of political opportunism?
Unmissable moments.
Classic BBC, that. Classic. Oh, yeah.
Newsnight.
Thanks, everyone.
With Victoria Derbyshire. Weeknights at 10:30 on BBC Two and iPlayer.
The girl who walked into the BBC in 1999 as a trainee would not have believed the experiences that I have had. When I first started covering women's sport, many people weren't terribly interested. The first time I realised that the women's game had progressed as much as it has was when England played at Wembley for the first time ever.
Wembley Way is packed with supporters. We just walked down there to get to the stadium.
To turn around and look around that stadium, packed out. You do try to be impartial as a journalist, but I'm not ashamed to say I shed a tear on that day. They had achieved something every little girl now dreams of. Representation is incredibly important because you've got to see it to be it. I've been incredibly privileged to have had a front seat to watch women's sport grow into this incredible force. And now we've got the next generation waiting in the wings to hopefully take it further.
Live from London, this is BBC News. The second of two prisoners released from Wandsworth Prison in error has been rearrested in London. At the White House, Donald Trump is preparing to host Hungary's President Viktor Orban. On the agenda, Russia's war in Ukraine and US sanctions on Russian oil.
I'm Katrina Perry, live at the White House. Prime Minister Orban comes here also eager to get that now cancelled Trump-Putin summit set for his country back on the calendar.
Hopes of a pause in the fighting in Sudan's civil war appear to be dashed with reports of explosions in the army-controlled capital.
So, will the faithful unite, or will Alan take it all?
And the wait is over. We find out who has won the game in the roller coaster finale for the Celebrity Traitors. Hello, I'm Anita McVeigh and welcome to Verified Live on BBC News. A 24-year-old Algerian man who was accidentally released from Wandsworth Prison has been arrested in North London. These are pictures that have come to the BBC in the last half an hour, filmed by a student of the moment of the arrest. Brahim Kadour Sharif was arrested on Blackstock Road in the Finsbury Park area at around 11:30 this morning local time. He was convicted in November 2024 of indecent exposure and put on the sex offenders register. The Metropolitan Police were not made aware of his mistaken release for more than a week. And let's speak now to our reporter Alison Earle, who is in Finsbury Park. Alison, what more can you tell us about the circumstances of the arrest?
Well, it all happened just behind where I'm standing. I'll just give you an idea of where exactly I am. This is Blackstock Road, about 5 minutes walk from Finsbury Park Station, just over that way. And it was just behind me in this parade of shops outside it that Brahim Kadour Sharif was rearrested at around 11:30 this morning. Well, what we understand happened from people we've spoken to is that he was walking along here when he was stopped by somebody, and within a matter of minutes, we're told, the police arrived. Well, when police got here, they spent quite a bit of time trying to confirm his identity and to make sure it was him. They used a picture for reference. He was seen wearing a grey hoodie, a black beanie, carrying a dark rucksack and also had a pair of glasses on. Well, he didn't go quietly. It's fair to say he was shouting for much of the time that he was standing outside these shops. Quite a crowd of people formed, many of them filming what was going on, and he could be heard shouting, "It's not my fault." Well, he was eventually handcuffed and put inside the police van, where he could still be heard shouting. Now, it's unclear whether this is an area where police were actively searching, as they did say that they knew he had links to parts of East London and was also known to visit Westminster, but it's now thought he perhaps came here because this has quite a large Algerian community and perhaps was thinking he might find support here. Well, this area is also interesting because it is just 5 minutes walk from where another man who was mistakenly released from prison was also rearrested. Hadoush Kabato, just 5 minutes that way, was arrested inside Finsbury Park just a couple of weeks ago. Well, the breakthrough in the end in this case came from a tip-off showing just how crucial members of the public can be in these investigations. And this is the second prisoner released in error from Wandsworth who has now gone back to jail.
And briefly, Alison, tell us about reaction, political reaction to this. Relief, obviously, but still lots of questions about this.
As you say, lots of questions over how this could happen, and so quickly after Hadoush Kabato, the migrant sex offender, was also mistakenly released from Chelmsford prison. Very embarrassing for the government. David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, has said he's determined to get to the bottom of this and to fix the broken prison system, which is clearly under lots of stress. Well, he did put extra checks in place to make sure something like this couldn't happen again, but many prison staff said they believe that was actually putting extra burden on those working in the prison system. Well, the Shadow Justice Secretary said he believes this could be just the tip of the iceberg, as we understand from prison workers that around 22 prisoners are mistakenly released on average every week.
Alison, thank you very much. Alison Oehler in Finsbury Park. Well, let's speak now to Nick Aldworth, former Detective Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police. Nick, thank you very much for your time today. Give us an insight into the police operation that will have been happening around the efforts to rearrest this individual. A big element of public support needed, of course.
Absolutely. And one of the things to bear in mind is that across the country, there are hundreds of people who are missing or wanted, every day of the week. That's the essence of what policing is about, trying to find these people. And of course, with these particular cases, there was a real advantage with the amount of political pressure which generated the media interest that then followed. And I suspect that without that, if these were just normal people who were wanted, they might have stayed at large for much longer. I do, however, think there's two distinct stories here. One is that of Billy Smith, who, I understand it, had a criminal record prior to the events for which he was sent to prison. He would have been, domiciled and established in the UK. He would have had a network of friends, family and associates. And the ability to track down people like that is somewhat easier than it would be for somebody who is perhaps more transient, as might be the case with an illegal immigrant into the country or even an asylum seeker.
From everything we've seen and heard, it seems there is a lot of room for improvement when it comes to the communication between the different parts of the justice system and how they talk to one another. Do you think that is a fair assessment? Have these mistaken releases really shone a light on what it is really like? Or do you think it's perhaps not the full picture of how the different elements, the different parts of the justice system talk to one another?
Well, my specialism is policing, and I think that, when the police receive information, generally speaking, they act on it well and with due diligence. I can't speak to the detail of the prison service or the probation service or all those entities that are linked together, beyond saying that even during my time there, and that's a little while ago now, there were mistakes being made, and I was certainly led to believe in those days that it is a bureaucratic, human-driven system, and the minute you start putting people into the middle of a complex system, then you will get some human error.
OK, Nick, thank you very much for your thoughts on this story today. Nick Aldworth, former Detective Chief Superintendent with the Metropolitan Police. Now to Washington, where President Trump is preparing to host the Hungarian President Viktor Orban. On the agenda, Russia's war in Ukraine and the US sanctions on Russian oil, among other topics. Well, the two leaders have enjoyed a close relationship. Here they are in Egypt last month at the summit to end the war in Gaza. The Trump administration has borrowed elements of the Orban playbook, including cutbacks at universities and firing civil servants. But will the relationship run into trouble over President Orban's aim to continue using Russian oil? The Trump administration recently put sanctions on Russia's two biggest oil companies and threatened further sanctions against anyone doing business with them in an attempt to put pressure on President Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Viktor Orban is the only EU leader to have visited Vladimir Putin in Russia since the full-scale invasion began. Well, let's cross live now to Washington and to my colleague, chief presenter Katrina Perry. Katrina, good to see you. So lots of questions ahead for this meeting. It's going to be fascinating. Among those questions, what does it mean for the war in Ukraine? And could President Trump possibly make an exception for Hungary, for Viktor Orban, when it comes to their purchase of Russian oil?
Well, Anita, both sides are basically saying that is the issue that's the top of the agenda for this meeting. Prime Minister Orban due here in around about an hour and a half time. He'll have a lunch with President Trump. Unclear at this point as to whether they will speak to the media or not. But as we know by now, that's how things tend to run here at the White House. Events that begin behind closed doors end up opening up to the full range of reporters here and taking a lot of questions, because there are many questions, as you've been talking earlier in the programme there, about the shutdown and domestic matters here in the US. But very much top of the agenda for the meeting between the Prime Minister and the President is this issue of Ukraine, is this issue of Hungary's dependence on Russian oil. I think it's unlikely that President Trump would make an exception for Hungary in terms of allowing it to continue to purchase or be so dependent on Russian oil, because there's pressure coming on it from the EU as well. And we know there's at times fractious relationship between President Trump and the EU, but they do all want to kind of pull in the same direction on this issue. More likely perhaps is some kind of economic deal that would be signed with Hungary in terms of providing an alternative energy supply for Hungary, something along those lines. Viktor Orban is here with 5 or 6 ministers from his cabinet, so very much intent on doing a lot of business while he is here beyond just those issues around oil. He also is very, very keen to get that Trump-Putin summit back on the schedule again. Of course, it's about 2 weeks ago now that President Trump said that meeting was off. It was supposed to take place in Budapest